Any video, anyone?
Nope. Nope.
We'll start. Okay, welcome to the July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. Just to let everyone know out there in the world, it's a hybrid meeting, meaning people are welcome to come in here or to go online, look up some instructions to join us via Zoom. Great, we have one person up there. Let's go to attendance. Eric, are you present?
Present.
Raise your hand and say yes.
Yes.
Hey, Mary, are you present?
Present.
That's a yes, very good. Deborah, I understand, is not going to be here. Charlie is not. I'm Hillard Bosky, so we can go forward here. Public comment is the first item on the agenda. If there's someone who would like to address the Board of Health about, I'm happy to go with anything. People have anything to say, questions, some of them may get answers, some may not, but we'd certainly like to hear from you. As you can see, we have a long line here. Why don't we say there's no one? Okay. Item number 2 on the agenda. This is an update, waste oil recycling at the town disposal area. I understand we will have someone here tonight, bring us up to date on this. There have been some issues about problems of bringing oil products into transfer station to get rid of them. It's gone on quite some time. So is someone here? Just come forward, introduce yourself. Thank you for coming in.
Certainly, I'm happy to introduce myself. My name is Roby Whitehouse. I'm the Assistant DPW Director, and I supervise the waste management facility.
Great, thanks for coming in.
So it sounds like your questions are related to how the waste oil program is going. Not well. I think we have 3 situations. We have COVID, which stopped a lot of SIN Environmental's personnel staffing, and it's been about 2 years worth of call them repeatedly, and they are not able to come and provide us with a service. So it was July of 2021 when we really started discovering the problems were really intense. And so we started reaching out to a lot of other companies, and we also experienced the same issue with other companies. So we went back to SIN because we had a good relationship with them. I discovered that I had an email contact, so it allowed me to trace all of my communications, and I have been CCing Carl in those communications to let him know that we are continuing to ask them. So they have been a little bit more responsive, but it is still an issue. But what we found was that we were supplementing our service with our hazardous waste collections, which take place twice a year, once in July and one in October. So we were supplementing the shortfall at the disposal area with that option of people being able to bring the oil and antifreeze to those hazardous waste collections. So part of our problem was because we had multiple situations of contamination. About 2 years ago, we had one 500-gallon tank for waste oil, and it was repeatedly contaminated. When the oil is contaminated with either gasoline or any other material, it is probably around a $2,000 expense to have it cleaned out because it's an unknown. They have to have it tested. It's a complicated process. It extends the period of time for the process and as well as the cost. There is approximately $18,000 in the budget, so it suffices and we managed to take care of that. But it does extend the process, and that's why we included the hazardous waste collection as an option for people. We have learned since then that it is necessary to have 2 500-gallon tanks of oil for waste oil. And that worked for a little while until someone decided to put gasoline in one of those containers. So we put some systems in place where the gates are locked at all times, and we have to have someone enter the gates with a key with a staff member, and we do a sniff test to make sure that there is no contamination in the oil. That, again, worked for about 3 months. And then the next thing you know, someone has managed to slip through because our staff was busy and put tar in one of those containers. So now both 500-gallon tanks are contaminated. It is an even more extensive time period for Sin Oil to make arrangements to come out and test when they're contaminated and make arrangements to have them emptied. So that's kind of the history of why we have had so many problems with getting it taken care of. It's not the financing. It has to do, number one, with COVID and their staffing shortages, and also the contamination that we've experienced with residents putting items into those containments that do contaminate them. So I don't know if that answers the questions that have been posed by staff and by the Board of Health, but those are the issues that we've had.
I know the main concern was when one of the board members was saying, what are people doing when they can't bring it to the transfer station? Are they pouring it in their backyards? How are they getting rid of it? Whatever oil, oil products they have. But perhaps someone from the board, Eric, I know you had some concerns, specific ones, and that's why we're have this on the agenda for tonight.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you've kind of summed it up by saying my concern is really if there's no opportunity to dispose of the waste oil at the transfer station, then where is it ending up? Is it ending up in the ground? Is it ending up in the drain? Is it ending up in household trash? So I think it's definitely a legitimate concern. I know that I see a lot of things in household trash that don't belong there. So, I mean, I'm just kind of wondering what other towns are doing. Are they experiencing the same issues? Are they contracted with other disposal services that are operating in a more timely manner? What kind of options do we have to offer the people in town an avenue to dispose of this? Because it is part of the services that are listed on the town website for the transfer station. So my understanding of that is, well, it's part of the fee that people pay when they get a disposal sticker.
Those are all great points. And those were actually things that I failed to mention. I did survey all of our neighboring communities to find out how they're handling the same issues that we were experiencing here in Yarmouth. And you're right, they do use two other companies. One is actually the parent company, Clean Harbors, for Sin Oil. And they experienced the same issues during the two-year period of COVID because of staffing. And that was really when it came to the head. When I asked for input in regards to how to make sure that there's no contamination, that was the recommendation that I received from those neighboring communities, was to lock the area up and only allow entrance upon observation and sniff test. They're experiencing the same issues with servicing. And you're right, it is a service we do strive to continue. But as I mentioned, we also have the hazardous waste collection that we hope will suffice in the interim. It is not an ideal situation, but again, we are trying our best to provide this service, and adding the second 500-gallon tank was our attempt to try to continue to provide that service. I'm not really sure that I can answer your questions any better than that. I can't tell you what other people are doing, but we advocate for people to either return to the store in which they purchased it, which is always an option if you have the receipt in the original containers, or bring it to the hazardous waste collection.
Yeah, thank you. The question is really kind of more rhetorical because I just think it's very concerning, like, is it going in the jug and in the household trash? That's just it's my concern, and sort of why we're trying to address this issue tonight. And just speaking from personal experience, I have used the waste oil disposal at the transfer station. I've never had anyone inspect what I was getting rid of. So that was just my experience, and I certainly understand that the staff members have a lot of responsibility there, and they're probably understaffed like the rest of the world. Just sharing my experience there.
I know it's twice a year for the hazardous day
Waste collection, yep.
collection. Yeah, I can tell you, I missed the last one. I don't know how it's being advertised. I certainly had one jar that I would, pretty simple thing, just some turpentine from painting. That was all, an antique. So I would have brought it by. So I'm not sure how it's being advertised. I certainly didn't get a text, and most of us don't look on the website all that often to check on that. So do you know how it was advertised?
There were signs out around town. There was a sign in front of the fire department, in front of the town hall, in front of the senior center, and at the waste management facility. You're absolutely right, on the website. I did not send a text out to people. That's true.
Okay. Something to
Senior
think about.
Center. Senior Center newsletter had it also.
Yeah, every one of the newsletters in town, thank you for that. The recreation as well as the libraries also put it in theirs.
Okay, so I missed it, at least the transfer station. It's the only place I would have seen it, the list you made. But no, I appreciate the effort on your part. You think about it, just a text. I mean, I would think a pretty easy thing to do. Just heads up on the date coming up.
Depends on whether or not you're signed up for those updates through the website.
Absolutely.
And I highly recommend that people sign up for those updates. It definitely tells you about all of our events at the waste management facility. And just so you know, I do have a call into SIN, and they are arranging for testing of those 2 500-gallon tanks. But I also heard from Calliope Chute that we had over 300 people at our hazardous waste collection this year, not only bringing items for hazardous waste, but also for latex paint recycling. So it was a great event, and I hope to shoot for 400 in October.
Do you, just because this is being recorded, do you really want it for latex paint? I just thought you could
Latex
dry it
paint
out.
was just this past event. There
Okay.
was recolor was there rather than disposing of it. They actually recycle it and actually create a usable paint with it.
Right, okay.
My hope is in October to do a different type of collection in conjunction with the hazardous waste in order to bring more people in.
Yeah, fabulous. Great. Board members, any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Guess what? You can leave.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Thanks, Toby. Okay, third item here is a hearing. It's a retail tobacco violation. That's 601 Route 28 Convenience Store in West Yarmouth. Is there? Great, there's someone here. Jay, anything you want to
Sure.
date on this first?
Sure. So the Yarmouth Board of Health outsources tobacco control site inspections to Barnstable. They handle that for us on all our tobacco sales locations. And on June 8th, in the afternoon of June 8th, there was a violation where a minor was allowed to purchase cigarettes at this location. It's the first time they've had in the past 2 years, but a ticket was issued to the facility, and we asked as a course of record that the permit holder would come in before the board and explain exactly what happened, staffing, if you could go over staffing, training. The other part too, from my understanding, is the ticket has yet to be paid. So
yeah, so my name is Charbel Tarek. I'm the manager at the West Yarmouth. So we did send the payment in last week. I don't know if you received it.
we'll be looking for that, right?
Yeah, but to start off with, so she's a new employee. You know how hard it is right now to find help. I went over everything with her before, we put her to work. I've asked her to ask ID, even if they look, 50, 60, whatever. But she must have just not asked and didn't do her job. So I made sure I talked to her about it. And, told her again, please ask everybody, doesn't matter how old they are, their IDs, and, every single person, just.
Right, you understand that. Do you have a system? Is it truly reading they're doing the math as far as the?
Yeah, oh yeah, they take.
You don't have a card system?
There's no card system, but, she knows, you have to be 18 and older.
The calendar, yeah.
Absolutely, yep. No, she checks all of that, but, she's a new employee. She must have just missed it. And, so I went over it with her and I talked to her about it and I explained it to her.
Okay.
So, she won't make that mistake again. And, like I said, I went through it with her and explained it and everything. So, it was just a costly mistake.
She
Yes.
understands, right, that it was costly for you, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, I've absolutely talked to her about it, and I always talk to them from the beginning to always ask ID. That's the most important thing that I focus on, because things like this happen, and it happened. So
Yeah, yeah. So it really has to be zero defect, believe it or not. You
Yeah.
cannot let that go
no,
through.
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
so the training has to be ongoing, and to
Yep.
your point, which understand completely, the board understands, the turnover in retail is extremely difficult.
Yep.
Retention is hard, especially on the Cape and in retail. However, that ongoing training, and then do you have video? Do you have that has to be constant?
Yes, we do. Yep.
So you do. So you, as the permit holder for the board, because the board issues permit to you,
Mhm.
that you are ultimately and actually financially responsible now
Yep.
for this.
Yep.
And the other part being is now it escalates. Should there be another violation, it becomes problematic and financially concerning as well, and can put your permit in jeopardy.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, you're all right. And I'm sorry about that, but like I said, I went over with her. I'm gonna keep reminding them, training them to make sure they ask the IDs and to ask everybody,
To everyone.
to everyone.
To everyone.
Yes, to everybody.
Repetition helps periodically, even for veterans in a job. It's helpful to get reminders.
Yes,
I'm sure we all agree to that based upon our work.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Board members, something we need to vote on. Anyone, please make a motion and we can move along on this.
I just had one other comment. I was at a liquor store recently, and they, the attendant at the front desk had a app on their phone for scanning licenses. I didn't think to ask the name of it at that time, but I think they had some trouble previously with a fake ID or something. So I was just reminded of it that that could be useful to not have to do the math, just take some thought out of it. If that were helpful, I don't know if that would be helpful, but I'm sure it's not that difficult to find on the App Store.
Yes, absolutely. That's definitely a good idea. I will definitely look into that. Thank you.
We will, I'm going to
Just-
take your
yeah.
word, excuse me, excuse me, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
that the payment, as of today, it isn't, but here we are Monday. So
Yeah.
last week it came
Last week
in.
it was sent in the mail. Yes.
Terrific. We'll
Yep.
look, we'll
Yeah,
certainly.
please,
look.
if you don't receive it in the next few days, just let me know and we'll take care of it. Yeah, but I know I did send it out, I think middle of last week. So maybe hopefully by tomorrow.
Thank you for
we'll
that.
get it.
Need a vote on it or
Yep.
not?
I don't think, so.
No,
Really?
no,
No.
you said
No.
that
It just said it was a hearing. Okay, fine.
you're coming in.
Appreciate you coming in. Okay, good luck with it. It's expensive for you.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, next up is number 4 here on the agenda. This is a hearing. This is location is at Bass River Waterfront Condominiums, and that's located at 1376 Bridge Street is what's listed here, South Yarmouth. And specifically, it's about a septic system capacity, Title 5 is what it says on our agenda. So I don't know, do we need any introduction? You want to just start with
They could
our
just-
guest here?
yeah, could just give a
Perfect,
brief-
you're on. Just introduce yourself to the record.
Sure. My name is Paul Tardif. I'm an attorney in Yarmouthport. Seated with me is Kieran Healy from the BSC Group. We are actually requesting a variance for one of the septic systems at the site. So the Bass River Waterfront Condominium trustees are in charge of they're really the association of the unit owners down there. And they manage the operations of the Bass River Waterfront condominiums, and we indicated the address. This property is comprised of 19 separate units in 4 different buildings and is served by 3 separate Title V septic systems installed in approximately 1985. And since the installation of the systems, regular inspections have been conducted without any failures. The 4 buildings down there are as shown on the plan. I know you got the site plan. Sorry about the age of that thing, but I actually pulled that out of the Board of Health file. It's all we had. So we're really talking about one of the buildings, one system. Just so you can get your orientation here. This is Bridge Street, and this is the Bass River Bridge right here. This is the Bass River on this side. Okay. So we have three buildings here, and we're talking about this building that's closest to the road here. And I hope everyone who's tuning in can also see that. So this building has one septic system joined by these two buildings down here. Well, this one building, I'm sorry, there's the lighthouse that we know about, and there's one unit in there. And next to the lighthouse is another unit, which is tied in together. This, just by a little way of history, this used to be a motel. It was a 33-unit motel that was converted in 1985 to a condominium form of ownership with the Zoning Board of Appeals approval. And what they did is they combined a first floor unit motel room with a second floor motel room connected by a spiral staircase. So we went from 30 of those rooms to 15. So in each building there were 10. And obviously we have 5 units here now. But when we did the septic system back in 1985, we counted this as 10 bedrooms because they were separate motel rooms. The plan actually called for a system that would handle these 10 rooms in this building and this other building, which is another 2 units, 2 bedrooms, one in the lighthouse building, which was the manager's quarters. And then the building next to it is a 1-bedroom as well, which would total 12 bedrooms. The system was designed for 11 for some unknown reason. It's right on the back of the plan as 11 units. It was installed and approved that way. And it's been 37 years without a problem over there. We're going to be going to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a couple of changes to our special permit, something unrelated to the septic system. Well, I guess it's related, but we wanted to make sure that the septic system could handle not only what's here now, but what we're proposing, which is to add a couple more months of use for some of these units. We are closed in January and February for the motel units. There are 3 year-round units. This one next to the lighthouse also, that's one of the year-round units. So we're not concerned with those units, but the other 15 units are seasonal, if you will, January and February to be closed. And we're going to go back to the Board of Appeals to see if we could use those year-round. I came to see Mr. Murphy with the hope that increasing that use would not strain the systems, that the systems were not designed for that type of use, and that they were okay. We sat down with Mr. Healy at this table for a few hours to try to sort everything out. We were very comfortable with the fact that the other systems on the other 2 buildings are fine. It's just this front building that we somehow came up 1 bedroom short. So that's the reason we're asking for a variance tonight, is to see if we can utilize the system that's there for the 12 bedrooms that we have, with the knowledge that sewage is coming and coming fast on Route 28, of which this is part. The system that we're talking about was just inspected 9 days ago. In fact, the report hasn't even been filed yet, but I did speak to the property manager today, who did indicate that it is passing and it's fine. And that traditionally has been the way that this system all these systems have been handled, because it's a 3-year for condos. Every year we inspect a different system, and it happened to be that one. So I was glad to hear that. I was hoping to have a report for you so you could tell that it was fine. The systems are very deep. They're buried. They're very what? Deep in the ground, deeper than usual. There are pumps for these systems that are checked regularly. And so I'm not concerned about the use of these in any way. I understand that we should have had a 12-bedroom system back in 1985. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. So we're just trying to make sure that the status quo is fine. And again, with the knowledge that there is some change coming very quickly, especially for this part of town, and that we'll be hooking up at that point. So that's the reason why we're here tonight, to ask for that variance for that 1 bedroom.
Well, appreciate you coming in and just saying you had a problem. or a potential one. I just have you review again the first building. It was a little confusing for me. There's a lighthouse there, I know. There's a room that also has a lot of bicycles in there right now.
Yes.
I'm just trying to get the bedrooms again.
So that room, by the way, with the bicycles, that used to be the restaurant for this motel. It's like
Okay.
a little breakfast room. And that was done away with in 1985 as part of that zoning relief. They wanted less traffic, less septic. And so it's just a day room. We store bicycles and chairs, and in the wintertime, we put kayaks and things like that, but there's no one living there. So that's not even part of Unit 18. It's basically a common area. Above it are the two floors, that square building. That's one unit, and that's a year-round unit.
Okay.
And then the lighthouse itself is another unit, but that's also seasonal, that we're going to hopefully change into a year-round.
So the bedrooms then for the two buildings are how many in each one?
One in each.
One in each.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Board members.
So the year-round, the units that are going to be year-round rather than 10 months out of the year include the lighthouse and include how many bedrooms?
Well, there's 16 units, so there'll be the 5 in each of the 3 buildings,
Okay,
the lighthouse itself, and the bedroom. I think the bedroom count is 1 bedroom, 2 people. I think everything else is 4, and we calculated that with Mr. Murphy as well.
so I guess what I'm trying to get at is the one septic unit that is in question, how many units are going to be adding time for that one?
6.
6. So 6 of the units serviced by that one septic that is approved for 11, but actually has 12 on it, are going to be increased in their usage.
We hope. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kieran, and did you and Bruce feel like that was reasonable?
We did, yes. We worked out the numbers, and based on 12 bedrooms going into 11, a system that's designed for 11, basically we're providing 91% of the flow. So the system is based on its daily use. It doesn't generate that much flow all year round. So it's not, even though the system is sized, it hasn't been used to that manner. And even with these units going to year round, it still is unlikely that there would be an occupancy of 4 in each unit, 365 days of the year. So based on that, I think Bruce was, when we talked about the numbers and the fact that 91% would be provided, that he was, I won't speak for him, but we got the impression that he was okay with this concept.
And Mr. Chairman, also just understand that the 15, the motel units, as we'll call them, with the rooms connected,
Right.
There are no full kitchens in those. Those are at the most two burner cooktops. So the use is limited. I'll tell you that the use during the off season is very limited, rarely at capacity. I know that there were a few unit owners that wanted to be able to come down for a weekend if they wanted to, but they couldn't in those months. And so that's the purpose of our goal, is to go back to the zoning board of appeals. But we just didn't want to walk in there knowing the question was going to come.
Right.
So that's why we're here.
I mean, are there restrictions on when someone's renting, how long they can stay in the unit?
I don't know if there's a limit for how long, but sure, I think it's 30 days.
Just for regular motels, I know we've been through this for different reasons, but yeah, so it is 30 days.
I believe so.
I mean, housing's a problem. It's the reason I'm asking, and it'd be a reasonable place for someone to live.
It's they're not palatial by any by any stretch of the imagination. They're tight, and so even to have families in there is very unlikely. And just, I already contacted the school district to talk about what impact this would have on them. They had no opinion one way or the other. In fact, they said we're building a new school. So, but I don't think there are anyone living there year round with children or anything like that. So it's very light use and mostly in the summertime.
Let's be pessimistic for a moment. How's that? That's an upfront introduction. Okay, so what happens if the system fails? Okay, sewering's not here yet. Is there a plan on file, something of what would take place, how it's fixed, how it's updated, what would take place if there's a failure? This comes back to the Board of Health and say, hey, you guys said it was okay, and suddenly the system has failed. What happens then?
If the system were to fail, it would be pretty much the same as any system that would fail. It would come back to do an existing conditions plan, do perk tests, do a new design for a septic system at that location, remove the one that's there for the 11 bedrooms and replace it with one for 12 bedrooms, so it would be conforming. That would be the process. The hope would be that the sewer would be in before that happened.
For sure.
And as we know, that systems can last a very long time if they don't get overused. My own house, my wife and kids and laundry, it seemed like it never stopped for a while. And I had to be very careful with my system. My kids moved out and all of a sudden it was getting half the flow. So systems like that can last for 25 or 30 years. So the thing is that as the system has been working extremely well, I don't think this additional operational or opening time is going to really affect the size of the system, in that it's pretty large system that's out there. And this will, we have got 91% of the required capacity. So the thought would be, if there was an issue, if it did fail before the sewer come in, then an existing conditions plan, the plan would be done, and the site design plan would be done with doctors, and a new system would come back in. That would be big enough for 12 bedrooms.
It'd be a tough project. Having gone over there, it'd be brutal to start with it. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it would be tough to put that money in the ground and then have the sewer show up.
It's a lot of asphalt to
later,
go
so-
through. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, I sure hope you reach the 37-year plan for your unit at home. Okay.
29 and count.
Yeah, keep us up to date on that, all right?
We're good. Kids have moved out. We're good.
Board members.
I have no problem with okaying this. They're going forward.
Is that a motion?
I move that we approve the variance requested by the Bass River Waterfront condominiums for their existing septic, that it is required for 12 bedrooms, but actually is certified for 11 bedrooms.
That was clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, Mary. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any other discussion here? Probably not. Okay, so let's vote. Mary, just raise your hand and which way you're voting.
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Hillary, aye. It's unanimous. Okay.
Thank you very much. We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Yeah, thanks for coming in. Great.
Sent you an email. We'll get together on that. Yep.
Okay. Anybody, if they want kits, they're here. Test kits. Anybody before you leave? Anyone? There we go.
Help yourself.
Great.
There you go.
Perfect. Okay, moving along, everyone. This is the fourth item on your agenda. And this is, where
Yes.
are we? No, we're down to 5. Great.
Aye.
Proposed Seasons Corner Market / Shell Station. What it says here is 473, 479, 487 Station Avenue, South Yarmouth. And 2 items underneath. One's a nitrogen aggregation plan. The other is stated relocate tobacco product sale permit from 446 Station Ave to proposed Seasons Corner Market / Shell Station. So stay with us, everyone who's listening, board members. There's a lot of material here. Some clear, some not, at least to me. So Anything you want to say, Mr. Gardner? Here? No?
If
Jay?
the present,
Jay? We're okay to start?
I think if presenters could introduce themselves and present to the board. There's a lot of moving parts here so that the listeners at home and the board members, of course, can understand the scope and the intention of your presence here today.
And history of it, absolutely. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Andrew Singer, an attorney in Dennisport. With me on my right is Bob McGann, who is from Colbia Enterprises, which is Seasons Corner Market. On the other side of me here is Dan Ojala, who you all know very well. So let me give you a little bit of background, because you do have a lot of materials, but this isn't the first time you've seen us. This is a proposal to, and we have an aerial up on the screen. I apologize for those of you who are on the computer, but we have an aerial here showing the 3 properties in question. And the proposal in a nutshell is to create a new Shell gas station, Seasons Corner Market at 473, 479 Station Avenue.
Before, trying to interrupt that quickly, just if you could spell out what those numbers mean, those
Sure.
addresses.
Okay.
Which ones are you referring to when you say 473 or whatever?
If you know the Today Real Estate property, which is part of this, that's 487. So the vacant land between the Today Real Estate property and the bike trail bridge,
Yes.
it's all that land. It's actually 2 parcels, so it has 2 addresses.
Okay, so that parcel has which number?
473 and 479.
Okay,
So that's the vacant land that
Yes.
is between the Today Real Estate business and the bike bridge.
okay,
So it's all that land.
Okay.
And the idea is to develop that property. And as part of that, the Shell station across the street is going to go away, and I'll explain this in more detail. And the Sunoco station at Old Townhouse as a gas station will be going away. And let me discuss that. We went before the Board of Appeals in 2018-19, and then because of COVID and other things got delayed. But at that point in time, we presented to you. We came, and at that we did, and there was an outside consultant did an environmental peer review report, Carriage House, and the town's outside water consultant Kleinfelder issued a report to you, and we had a full hearing with you. And at the end of that hearing, this was on the fuel service, in the Aquifer Protection District. You sent a memo to the Board of Appeals outlining the project, suggested some conditions, and were generally responsive and in favor of the proposal, because what's happening is we're actually in the Aquifer District, we're reducing gas, we're reducing fuel, we're improving the piping and all of the containment, because you're taking 2 40, 50-year-old stations offline and putting one new one in. So there's a net reduction in all the numbers of bad stuff, and there's a net improvement in all. So you felt on balance that from a fuel point of view, that was a good idea. And the Board of Appeals agreed and approved the permits. So fast forward to today, part of that Board of Appeals approval is that we have to have Board of Health approval. The Board of Health, and that's why we're here this evening, there are 2 aspects that we're asking you for approval. One is the nitrogen aggregation plan, because we are in a water sensitive APD zone. And the other deals with a tobacco license, and we'll set that aside for the moment. The nitrogen aggregation plan, as you know, requires that you have what's called a facility land, which is the site where the work's going to be done, and credit land, offsite property that is going to be taken offline and no longer be a nitrogen generator. And that credit under DEP in Title V allows you to balance and allow for the development we're requesting on the facility land to be protected by the undevelopment of the credit land. So in this case, the development is simple. It's the property. It's the 473 and 479, the vacant land that's there. That's the facility land. That's what's being proposed. As credit land, what is being submitted is the Shell station across the street. So that station, what's proposed now, again, until such time as the sewer comes to this part of town, which is going to be a lot longer than Mr. Tardif's property down Route 28, or until another offsite property can be found, what is being proposed, the Shell station across the street is also owned by the same applicant. They own, the Colbia Enterprises owns the Shell station. They are agreeing to undevelop that property. They're going to remove the building, remove the service station, remove the gas station, remove the pavement, everything.
it will become a natural lot and be protected under a recorded credit land restriction. And I gave you drafts of all of that in the file. And that's a pretty standard form that the DEP uses for those two restrictions. The DEP has delegated their authority on these matters to you as a Board of Health to review. So we are asking for you to review, and we're happy to answer any questions, obviously, to approve the nitrogen aggregation plan, which will allow us to develop 473 and 479 and to undevelop 446. The Sunoco station, which I mentioned, is not actually part of the nitrogen aggregation plan, but it's part of the Board of Appeals approval. So I wanted you to know
Say
that.
that again.
The Sunoco station, removing the gas station and then ultimately the servicing from that property,
Right.
isn't before you. It's not something that is part of the nitrogen plan, so you don't have to vote on that, but it's part of the Board of Appeals approval, so it's something that's being done.
Okay.
And it's an improvement. It's part of the net balance of improvement for the project. Now, another complicator, just to make life really exciting for you, is when you look at 473 and 479, we gave you a map, it's in the file. There is the Today Real Estate. Why do I keep mentioning Today Real Estate? Today Real Estate has a little dog leg of property that goes behind the site that my client wants to develop. They have an agreement to buy that dog leg, and that piece of land behind them will become part of their project for the new gas station, service station. And the reason why we're the other part of the nitrogen, I'm having trouble saying that tonight, aren't I? The nitrogen aggregation plan is the Today Real Estate received permission from the Board of Health many, many years ago for its own nitrogen. Dan submitted nitrogen calculations for that property, showing that when you take off the 7,306 square foot dog leg in the back, their property at 487 Station Avenue remains in conformance with its approval. So we're just asking you as part of the nitrogen aggregation plan to acknowledge that there's a plan change for 487. And all the owners of all these properties are on board. They're all co-signers of applications with agreements. Everything is all agreed to among the parties. Could I just ask, when does that become part of the footprint? When does that become? Everything we're asking you for tonight, as we did with the Board of Appeals, as we'll do with the Board of Selectmen for the fuel service, is we're asking for it's conditional upon the project happening. So when, Jay, when you ask when this happens, is if all the permits and when all the permits are in hand, then the transaction will take place so that land will be sold because it's another family owns the land right now. Right. The land will be purchased, the new station will be built, and then the Board of Appeals had specific deadlines as to when the Sunoco and the existing Shell stations have to come offline, be changed or undeveloped as the case may be. So if all the permits are issued, so after this permit that we're seeking from you this evening, we have to go to the Selectmen and then the Planning Board for a A&R. If all that takes place this summer, which we hope it does, the applicant's hoping to start work sometime late fall or through the spring. You know, so it would be starting work, and then hopefully as soon as they open, everything has to fall into place. Oh, okay. Under the permits, and that's what would happen time-wise. That's a condition. So as of right now, that little dogleg isn't under control. Oh, it is. Oh, no, the dogleg is under control by purchase and sale agreement. Okay. And was approved by the Board of Appeals as part of the project. Yeah, if we didn't have the dogleg, we have no project. Exactly right. Okay, Correct. That's my point. Okay, Yes. but that is folded into the long-term plan. Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, this is, and we've said this to the Board of Appeals, so I might as well say it to the Board of Health. In 26 years of my doing this, this might be the most complex project with more moving pieces than I think I've ever had in a project. So there's a lot up in the air, but the benefit of it to the aquifer and to the town, we believe, is just so good, so significant because of the improvement in the fuel service, fuel storage reduction and all of that. So that's why we're going through everything with you. So we're asking for permission, for that nitrogen plan. We're also asking, and I discussed this with Bruce this afternoon,
Normally nitrogen plans after the Board of Health approves them are recorded within 30 days. And the work then goes on. We can't do that here because of that complex permitting process I just mentioned to Jay. So we're asking for permission to not have to record the documents till March of next year, because by then everything will be, we hope, permitted, construction underway, and everything is then closed up. Each piece hinges on the other piece.
Right.
So on the, and let me leave again, I'm going to leave tobacco off for a moment, but on the nitrogen aggregation plan, if there's any more details or discussions you'd like on the calculations or on the plan or on the layout, anything technical, Dan will be happy to answer that. If you have any questions on operations, Bob and I would be happy to attempt to answer that. And then let me stop on the first part, the nitrogen plan here, and ask the board for questions and any comment.
Just curious, when you sort of have this land bank that you can take advantage of, right now it'll be the land over where the Shell station is. In other words, are there restrictions in the distance that it can take place? In other words, could that have been 4 miles away to?
Has to be in the same sub-watershed.
Okay,
So wherever that same sub-watershed is, it can be. It doesn't have to be that close as it is. It just happens to be in this case.
Okay.
Dan from Down Cape. Yeah, it could have been a few miles away, but when we did, the owners were pretty diligent in looking for various parcels, including some town-owned parcels, but it's just hard to get all those ducks in a row. And this one was fairly straightforward to get. And so that's the one we chose. And it's obviously right in the same sub-watershed because it's right next door.
okay. Maybe you can educate me at least on this. I kept seeing the 440 gallons per day requirement. Maybe you could tell me a little bit about that, as opposed to, generally we're looking at houses and 110 for bedrooms. Why don't you tell me about that?
Sure. So what that is in 95, the state Mass DEP revised Title V, and for the first time introduced nitrogen limitations. Your town was very forerunning on this and actually had a nitrogen limitation plan in effect in prior to 95. I think it was the late 80s. We realized it was a sole source aquifer and you had to protect it. And so you basically had a 4 bedroom per acre rule in place. And also you'll see a lot of old restrictions on lawn area that we had to do a whole spreadsheet calculation on Lotus 1, 2, 3, I think it was at the time. But and what this basically is just you don't want to put too much septic into the ground on a lot on a per acre basis. And the reason for that is if you put too much nitrogen in and there's not enough recharge from the groundwater, the nitrogen levels can go up above the ultimately 10 parts per million is the limit on drinking water, where you start to worry about blue baby syndrome and some other things. But as a general rule of thumb, the Cape Cod Commission and so forth looks at about a 5 part per million threshold. 440 per acre would probably be a little over, maybe 6 parts per million. And so what these folks would like to do is put a couple of bathrooms, and what really is spendy on these are the gas pump islands, which is it generates quite a bit of technical flow under Title V to put into the ground. And if you'd like to do that on a smaller lot, you're either out of luck or you have to make the lot bigger. So how do you make the lot bigger? We went to the neighbors, we purchased a small wedge there that was nice for the drive-through in the back. And then Title V does allow you to purchase off-site space to effectively make your lot bigger. And therefore you can, when you talk about the specific numbers of 440 gallons per day per acre, what you're really talking about is approximately 4 bedrooms per acre. But when you go to the other side of the equation, they don't break it down in bedrooms. It's seats in a restaurant, it's square footage of retail, it's square footage of office space. And so you just go to the table in Title V and you multiply out your numbers by the square footages. And in this case, it's about 800 gallons per day. So how much land do you need for that? Well, if you look at the plan, it's very, very simple arithmetic tucked right in the corner of the plan here. To generate 440 gallons per day per acre, you'd be looking at 800 divided by 440 per 40,000, which is 0.011. So you get about 72,728 square foot required. Our locus with the extra little strip, which is already cooked in here because it's under PNS, is 51,280. And so we need about 21,448. Again, we looked around, had trouble finding it, but did have Station Ave available. That one is 25,846. So we get 76,126. That's about 4,000 square foot more than we need at the 72,728. So you basically just make your lot bigger through the legally binding arrangements of limiting the amount of nitrogen that goes in here and the nitrogen that goes in there to net out at 440 gallons per day per acre. So that's the threshold which the DEP decided was reasonable in a zone 2. Of course, the town has a ton of open space, and we do a lot better than 5 parts per million, especially on the northern wells. But that's the rule, and we're adhering to it. And so that's the manner in which you basically make your lot bigger if you've got a little bit more flow that you want to put on a smallish lot. And then to that point as well, the neighboring property had a certain amount of flow per acre. We're cutting off a little bit a lot. So we did a check. Is that one still okay? Yes, it is. And so Bruce has approved that administratively, that we're able to cut off that little tail and not overburden that little wedge, that little lot next door. So that's a part of the application as well. So in places, you'll see that that neighbor listed. And again, that's cutting off a fairly small piece, 0.17 acres. And we showed by calculation that neighboring lot is all set. And that's part of the application under the second 4/14/22 memo that we put in. And again, back in the day, that one was back when there wasn't the 95, but you had your local ordinance. And we show that, the 4 bedrooms per acre of conventional land, which is, 40,000. That 264 gallon per day design flow would require 24,000 feet, and remaining you've got 32,497. So you easily make it. And so Bruce was satisfied with that, and does close the loop on the whole situation.
Mary, Eric, any questions?
Nope.
It's a little off topic, but so are there generators on site that provide electricity if
For the new site,
yeah,
you have generators.
You don't have generators at all our sites, but we do at some. But we'll probably plan on one in case there's a power outage, if that's what you mean.
I didn't hear the last thing you said.
We would, you're asking if we would have one in case there was a power outage?
Yeah,
We do
Haven't
have
planned
gas
that yet,
service.
But quite often we do.
you have pumps there, sensors there, you've got all warning systems. My concern, if electricity goes out, what happens to that for your sewage and for your fill the fuel that's sitting there? That takes me by surprise, I think.
I would
need,
think that we would have one there, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
there is natural gas available for a generator. And I'm sure some of those have battery backups, some of those alarm systems. It's a very safe system where you've got double wall fuel systems and you've got brine filled between the inner and the outer tank with sensors, very, very accurate sensors to detect whether there's a leak in either the inner or the outer tank. And that system is probably down to 12 volts and we'll probably have a backup
Yeah.
battery, but we'll make sure there's a generator on, even if that does have its own backup. It sounds like that's a prudent idea.
okay, all right. One of the concerns I have is the lot where the Shell station. It's easier for me to think of it that way and start giving numbers to it.
We do too.
Okay, good. The former Shell station. Okay, so it's leveled there, and that lot's going to be left.
Yes.
My concern for the town is going to look like an abandoned lot. In other words, for business here, that's the last thing I think we need here is to have a vacant lot sitting there with weeds. That's not very good to bring business to our town. could be ugly. You know, I had a different image of this when I was reading it. You know, I had this whole image of trees growing, being planted, look kind of nice. You come off the bike trail and cool off a little bit. And I guess listening, I'm not kind of reassured that any of that would take place, and we would have some lots that would be similar to what's on 28 right now, which I don't think are good for the health for people living here, financially, just aesthetically. So that's my concern right now, as I'm thinking, a major concern.
No, and that's a valid concern. Originally, the idea was, way back with the Board of Appeals, was that the gas station was going to be removed and the service station was going to stay, or there might be an office there, you know, so, at that property. Because of the, as Dan mentioned, because of the credit land requirements and thus far not finding other, you know, other suitable replacement land, this was decided because it's legally allowed and, you know, under Title V, and it works. And certainly, and I had this conversation with Bruce as well, you know, certainly there, and we talked, you know, the site will not be looking abandoned, you know, it will be vacant. You know, it'll be, you know, whether it's wildflowers or, you know, or something, it would be, it would not be let to go, just totally go. However, until again, another piece of land was found or sewer, you know, that would be, it could not be used for something that was nitrogen generating. Bruce and I discussed the concept of, you know, could anything be done there that wouldn't generate nitrogen? Or could you grant variances from the aggregation to allow something smaller? And neither one of us had a good answer for that, you know, when we were on the phone. You know, so timing wise, to get back to, this ties back to a question Jay had, is that over the next, you know, 8 to 12 months, before, you know, everything would at a minimum be open, you know, they're continuing to look, they're always calling, excuse me, and reaching out to people who have land in the sub-watershed. And there are some parcels, there were a handful of parcels that are possibilities, that are not town owned, because that again was a process that did not ultimately come to fruition. Certainly, I think we can't tell you the site will have use on it, because it won't. But and I say this with my client next to me, tried to do what can be done reasonably to make the site, while vacant, not look unattractive.
Yeah. One thing I would just throw out there, Bob, is we'd have 3,000 square foot of that land that we could put a little strip lawn on and some plantings out front. If you'd be willing to do that, we could leave a little irrigation there. If that,
Sure,
just to
yeah.
throw out
Curb
there.
appeal is important to us. We've been neighbors and occupants for many years in Yarmouth, and we want to continue to be good neighbors. So we can commit to making it a good presentation and doing some of the things along the lines that Dan had just mentioned.
We
So
do
it
have
doesn't
to
become an
remove,
eyesore.
yeah, we
It's
do
not
have to
our
remove
intention.
the pavement. We have to remove any man-made sources of nitrogen, like a building with roof runoff. You get a very slight amount, believe it or not, of nitrogen in that. But, you know, if we give a pervious surface, we could leave, you know, certainly room for a sidewalk and, you know, expansion of a sidewalk, and then about a 3,000 strip of landscaping there that could be managed. And then what happens behind that, I think, would kind of be backstage. You know, you could get some nice
Maybe
wildflower meadow
or-
growing, you know, in the back probably even. And if the sprinklers happen to kick over a little in that direction, I guess no one would get too excited about it. Because as long as you don't actively put fertilizer on it, I think it meets the standard. And then the 3,000 foot, we could actually put a little fertilizer, starter fertilizer if it needed it, and just kind of maintain that. But you'd have to be okay with mowing it once in a while. And
The one thing we need to do with that, if that's something that was amenable to the board, is we would need to tweak the draft credit land restriction to just reflect that. Because right now I just said the lot. You know, we can easily say this portion of the lot, because you can do that under the nitrogen aggregation plan. You don't have to restrict the whole parcel. You only need to restrict what you need. So what Dan is suggesting is perfectly feasible from a legal point of view. You know, we just have the attachment exhibit A to the credit land say 21,000 square feet of this lot shall be, and then the rest of it, will be landscaped to make it look more attractive. But as Dan said as well, everything does have to be removed from the site, the tanks in the ground, the building, the pavement. So there can't be anything constructed, but we could have some, I don't know how wide the frontage is there. So 3,000 square feet, I don't know, there's a curb cut, which would still be there. So it'd be on either side of it probably. And we'd be, I think I'm hearing from what you'd be
Yeah,
comfortable
that'd be-
doing that.
Yep.
And the hope is that someday, whether it's sewer or another piece of land, that we'll be back before you
Right.
to make changes.
I'm doing all the talking here tonight. Board members, Jay?
Mr. Chairman, can that, what you just outlined as a kind of a beautification proposal, can that become part of the plan that you're putting in and committing as opposed to verbally? When you have, and the chairman's points are well taken, a vacant lot, you can have midnight dumping, vermin attraction. It can attract all kinds of unintended consequences here. So the steps that are taken proactively, but committed to the plan so that the board has a reassurance that that is actually going to take place. And that is actually part and parcel of the project. That adds some assurances that in fact, it's not going to just be left to some unintended consequences.
The answer is yes, in a different format, MICF, because there is no plan per se of that piece, because it's just this rectangle on a piece of land, on a plan.
Yeah.
What I would suggest though is that could be built into your decision. That it could be, we have. I'm just looking at this. Dan just showed me the plan for the site is from 1975. It's just an old recorded plan.
Yeah.
It's very old. So what I would suggest, if the board agrees, is that in your decision, you note that only the minimum required to be restricted shall be restricted.
Credit, right?
As credit land.
Yep.
And that the balance, approximately 3,000 square feet, so maybe a little bit more or a little bit less, shall be landscaped, to be a more attractive along the street.
Right.
Yeah, I think that would work. And we just do that in the decision. That decision, then there's the authority, because you do want enforcement if it wasn't done.
Right.
Or the ability to enforce.
Is that, I know you're working off numbers. Are you just ballparking that? It's about 3,000?
I had said 4,000. I went to 3,000 because it's a little closer to 3,000 than 4, but the
Okay,
exact figures I'd have to get out my
Yeah.
calculator for, but it's a little over 3,000.
right. So that would wrap around the whole side.
Well, I guess, it would all depend on how you'd want to arrange it, and to your point, if against the Botzavallis, is if you wanted a 10-foot strip there and then the balance out front. I think there's a fence against Duncan, so you could probably let that go wild. I don't think it would make too much difference.
And actually, at the moment, there is existing vegetation on, but it's on the Botzavallis property probably, but there's growth on that side, it looks like.
Would have to measure to be sure, but it's probably.
My thinking is, just to confirm, I think what is along the front of the property, and if you need to tweak a corner a little bit, again, Duncan has the fence on part of it, certainly can be done.
Yeah.
I mean, the goal here is not, they're trying to help redevelop, a good part, with the gas stations in this area. So they want it to look good as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture if you're facing the current lot, what's running on the left side going north? In other words, I mean, the
So-
front I can picture. I'm just trying to picture what's down the left side of it, of that lot.
So
Keep the curb.
there's currently a 10-foot buffer, a row of trees against, this is the Botzavallis has a little.
Just show us the streets, and remember, people are watching from home a little bit. So why don't you call out where the streets are?
On the other side, because
Sure.
then I think on camera they can see the picture.
So what are some of the buildings that exist now to help us get oriented?
Sure. So what have we got here? We've got, this is the 446 Station Ave. This is the donor land. So the building, the Shell station, where you pull into the pumps and exit, it's old school. There's no landscaping. On this side here, the Botzavallises have a little site developed, and it looks like it's got a 10-foot buffer with a number of trees on it. So those I would retain. And I would guess in the back, there would be a few trees that could be retained. Now, I'd have to orient myself here. Where's that Dunkin' Donuts with the drive-through? Is that,
Next to where it says Avenue.
yeah, isn't that here? You come all around.
Right.
There's so many
This is
darn
what-
trees, you
this is
can't even
what's
see the
there.
drive-through.
That's Dunkin'.
So the Dunkin's backs right up to it, and there's a fence all along there. They must have got a, there's a cooler out front, but there's a good number of trees along that buffer. So those will all stay, the seedlings go, the little pines pop up. If you don't mow it, it'll soon would become woodland. But obviously we don't want a scraggy, dried out stretch of land. Those are unattractive. So if we put a strip of maintained landscape along the street and, say an extra 5 feet along Botsavalis, I think that would probably be a very nice way of handling it. It's probably a little too shady to do much along the tree line on those sides. But we could leave the curb cuts and in, 10 feet or so, and then green up the balance of the front. Might be one way to do it.
For me, it's a lot of loose ends a little bit. It's hard to read it from 17 feet. I mean, I'm just trying to interpret the picture, and there are people certainly at home. To get appreciation, the 10 feet and so on. That may help me. It's not going to help everyone who's listening. That's all.
Yeah, I know,
You had
understood.
mentioned mowing, then you mentioned not mowing. It seems loose to me. That's all I'm trying to, I think it's important for the community. That's all. And
Well, it
it's
would
a
be-
business district, and we want people coming to use it. That's all. And so it's the aesthetics of it. The board can't assume that this is going to turn over suddenly, and another store is going to open up.
No.
Oh, you
And
certainly.
not unless there's another piece of land, absolutely.
Right. So some of us won't be doing the jobs we're doing right now when that eventually happens.
Let's hope it's really
Well-
quick and then you all will be, but
Facing each other again, yes.
Certainly, there's a lot of rules against fugitive dust, and it'll be well maintained and carefully cared for. There's a lot of neighbors, the Botsavalis is not the least of them, that do care a lot about the aesthetics of the area, and will work hard to maintain that. It's when you say mow or no mow, wildflower meadows, you can get away with mowing them once a year, but the only thing I'd worry about that is it would prevent the growth of trees, woody growth. And I think I'd rather see a forest come back up in there than not. Long term, it's just the habitat that wants to be there on the Cape is a pine and oak forest. So I would probably tend to let that grow up and just keep the 192 foot of frontage in nicer shape. And I don't know, could we commit to a little sprinkler system out front? We have the water service already. Would that be something that wouldn't be unreasonable, or for the border? I mean, trying to keep that grass strip alive, it's going to be tough without it.
Yeah,
That's the
we
only
could do
thing I'm
that.
thinking. So if the board would condition it with a sprinkler for the frontage, the 3,000 plus or minus square foot, that would probably go a long way towards keeping that looking green rather than brown,
What's the distance along Station Ave to the lot? What's that distance?
Not quite 200, it's 192, it looks like.
192 and change. And you take out the curb cuts, which are 20 feet each, whatever they are. So you'd be looking at about 150 feet of landscape strip times whatever the depth is that works.
Can you use some help? Board members.
You want a motion,
Here.
Hillard? You want a motion?
Mary, you can always motion.
Okay. I move that we approve the nitrogen aggregation plan for the proposed Seasons Corner Market / Shell Station, which includes the facility part of the land at 473 and 479 Station Avenue, the credit land at 487 Station Avenue. I'm sorry, that Shell Station across the street.
At 446.
46.
Yes, at 446, sorry. And that land, the minimum, only the minimum required be restricted on that credit land, and the balance be made more aesthetically presentable. It's about 3,000 square feet. And the, at least the front approximately 192 feet strip would be maintained landscaping with sprinkler. And I think we have to also say that the plan would be recorded by March 2023. And we acknowledge the plan change at 487 Station Avenue, which will occur within the next year. Did I cover it all?
I think quite well. Any other, we
one point
can
of
make an addendum here? Yeah,
Is, where, appreciate the motion where you said 192-foot strip, we could just acknowledge minus the curb cuts.
Yes, okay, minus the curb cut, certainly.
And if I could add one thing, what might be prudent is to require 4 inches of loam be spread across the area. Because when you see those blighted sites, it's often stuff trying to grow in sand. And if you put some loam, that will really
Okay.
help the plants
Okay.
grow.
Okay.
So be a reasonable condition. It also helps protect the environment because stuff spilled on loam tends to stick there and be digested.
So the maintained landscaping would include the spreading of loam.
4 inches, sure.
On the strip there.
Yeah, and that would be for the disturbed areas of the site, well, it might be phrased, and that would be a very nice way to maintain it in perpetuity.
Mary, thank you.
Mhm.
Eric, would you be willing to second the motion or not?
Yes, I will second it.
That's a second, okay. Any other discussion here? It's complicated. Anything you want to add? Take away? No?
Just, I mean, in terms of discussion, you had mentioned the generator on site. Are we all in agreement there?
I think that's gonna be a separate topic, though, issue we brought up, the generators, right?
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? Eric,
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I don't understand what you're asking me.
if you speak up, I'm not hearing it.
Yes, I mentioned the generators.
Right, we could discuss that. I think that'd be not part of this
Okay,
motion. Which we're really talking about the nitrogen aggregate here, really. Okay, so why don't we vote on it? And then tomorrow we can talk about the generators. Mary, want to vote, please?
Aye.
Okay, Eric?
aye.
Aye as well. That's unanimous. So that passes. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Eric. Generators.
And then tobacco.
Okay,
As far as generators, while there's really nothing before you
correct.
regarding that, the applicant for the record is stating that they will include a generator in the new site at 473, 479. So that could be in the minutes, we're saying it for the record. There's really no
Right.
indication per se, but happy to make that commitment.
So
And
Jay,
that
how
would
does
be
that
a-
get passed along? You know,
I have a-
it's not really up to the Board of Health. Well.
I have a
not
suggestion that
tonight.
might be helpful.
Yeah,
We
sure.
have to go to the selectmen for a fuel storage license.
Yeah,
If you make that recommendation to them, they can include it.
okay. I mean,
I'll make it. Well, I'll tell them that's what we're proposing.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, yeah,
you're okay with that?
right. We are.
Okay,
You generally want a natural gas powered generator so you don't get the belly tanks with the possibility of leaking. Is that we usually use is natural gas, yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely. Okay.
okay. Tobacco time.
Yes, so this is another conditional request. The existing Shell station at 446 has a tobacco license. When it closes down and when it is torn down, they are asking for permission tonight to relocate the existing license lock, stock, and barrel across the street. Not a new license, just to relocate.
It seemed pretty straightforward to me.
Yes.
Okay, do we need to vote on that or not?
I think we should vote on that.
Okay.
It doesn't add to the number, it's so that
Right.
it's reciprocity, it's just transferring it from one location to another. So I
Right.
think the board should take a vote.
Yeah, it's not changing the cap issue. We're not changing ownership of that license. It seemed pretty straightforward. So,
Straight across.
So I'm good. So why don't we vote on it?
I'll move that we approve the relocation of the tobacco sales permit from 446 Station Avenue to the new proposed Four Seasons station at 473, 479, and 487 Station Ave.
Thank you, Eric. Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on this? If not, we'll vote. Eric, vote for the motion? Yes, no?
Aye.
Aye, Mary,
aye.
Hillard, aye. So that's unanimous as well. Okay, so you transfer the tobacco across the street.
We appreciate all your time. We recognize that it's complex, and thank you very much, both on Zoom and here in the room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks for
board
coming.
members.
Good luck.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Great job. Thanks. See you then. Look at you.
Got one valuable document here. You want to take
Yeah.
it with you?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so number 6, here we have an update on the El Mariachi Restaurant, that's at 416 Route 28.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, as you remember, the El Mariachi at the direction of the board 2 meetings ago was put under the stipulation to hire a food service consultant. They did that, and you have in your pack the most recent inspection of July 11th, and satisfactory, and they've had consistently satisfactory inspections. And the Burger Food Service Consulting, which is doing the inspections, all the training, the oversight, scheduling, time temperature management training, all of the components that go into for an establishment to be in satisfactory compliance of Article 10, they're meeting their benchmarks, and what they would like to do is to move to not weekly inspections, but every other week. So that was going to begin next week, where they would begin every other week, and if that holds, that this is a 6-month project here. They're hired on for 6 months,
right.
but this would be the next incremental step towards progress to show that yes, the training has gone well, the compliance is there, as the board can see from the inspections, violations, priority violations and things have increased have improved dramatically, and the next step is to go to every other week inspections, if the board agrees.
Yeah. Board members, comments?
I didn't get the inspection report. I got 2 copies of the tobacco violation instead, I think. But from what you said, Jay, it sounds as if it has been consistently satisfactory now for a couple of weeks.
It has now for 3 different inspections. And in addition to just the inspections, it's also the ongoing training that's for the staff, scheduling, recording of temperatures, things of that nature. So a rotation of product, covering, cleaning. There's now a schedule in place and a cadence to cleaning that Burger Food Consulting felt like it has reached the progress now or a level of progress that they could back off a little and go every other week.
And they would not come back and ask or suggest that it be done less frequently than that, would they? Or do you not know?
I do not know. I don't know that to be the case. Actually, I asked the inspector, Phil, today and said what Burger Consulting said was that if it fell backwards in it, every other week they saw some regression in progress, they would go back to once a week. But this was the next step, every other week.
Okay.
I'd be curious, you probably don't know the answer is, has their self-inspection, I mean, Do you have any idea what that would produce with our inspections? In other words, would that get an A or B or C, what their current status is?
Yeah, how does that translate? I don't know. I can tell you we have not been there. We're letting this consulting firm
Oh,
handle
I
it.
meant by the information they're providing. Are we able to
Oh.
tell or not?
Yeah, I would leave that. This is in substantial compliance,
Yeah,
probably an A or a B. Yeah,
yeah.
they're doing well. They're doing very well. And they're being closely monitored. And more importantly, I think, well, as important, I should say, is the training that's going on for the staff, that they understand and that there's a system now in place for ongoing monitoring. Because quite frankly, whenever this is into the fall, hopefully we can back away from a consultant being on board. We don't have the staff to be there every other week or every week, so that they have to take this over. It's
Yeah.
their responsibility. I think we're moving in that. This is a positive step, and we're moving in that direction.
Been great progress
Yep.
from those initial pictures we saw.
Right.
Yeah, so if sometime next winter, maybe we'll take a visit next when.
Yeah.
When they leave.
And that's the schedule. This goes well into the fall. It's a 6-month
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
This
So
was signed on in May.
maybe back in February or March.
Yeah.
One of us could stop by. Great.
So that's the progress on that.
Thank you. Number 7, we have an update coming here on 414 Route 6A, and that's the horse stable license.
Yeah. Is Mr. Grady on, do you know?
I don't know how to determine.
I think I believe he's zoomed in.
I can't see if that's on the right side of a name there. I don't.
There he is.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
His mic is off.
Great.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the abutters or any interested party is
Yeah.
filled in on this. So as a result of the board's action of a removal, 2 meetings ago, it was put to the town council. The town solicitor issued an order that was filed in Barnstable Court. And last Thursday, was the 14th, Director Murphy and town council appeared in court and the case was heard. He made the case as far as the condition, the condition as far as the smells to the abutters, the setbacks, the ongoing maintenance that was required, and that the board had issued an order and that they really have never had a complete application to act on. And at the time, that Thursday hearing, the judge took it under advisement. And this afternoon, we learned that the decision has been rendered and that the town council would pick that up at the end of the week. So I don't have a disposition on, I don't know the final outcome, but that has worked its way through the courthouse, and a decision we should have, here we are Monday, by the end of the week, town council will be picking that up and we'll be able to make that available to the board.
Were the folks from 414 Route 6A there, the owners?
Thank you, Mary. I neglected to say that they were. The owner was in fact there, and they presented that they are working to gain compliance, and that global surveying, that they had an email, no contract, but an email for the surveying of the property. But they did present. They were there.
That's what they told us 2 meetings ago, though, or last meeting, the meeting we have the minutes for today. Okay, so then so basically what were we asking the judge to do?
So we were asking for the removal of the horses. We had a stable that
Right,
was
Right.
functioning without a permit.
so the decision would say either yay or nay to the owners, you must remove the horses under penalty of what? What's going to happen if they still don't? I mean, I don't understand, I just don't understand it.
You're right. So let's do this in the next step of this, because I don't want to create any expectations here. We know a decision is coming forward.
Right,
With
Right.
that, and town council would then say, is it 30 days? Is it immediate? We don't know what that's going to be, but we know a decision is being rendered, has been rendered, and we will know at the end of this week.
okay. So will you let us know rather than,
We,
making us wait till the next meeting? would you send out an email and let us know what the decision is and what it means?
Most
Please.
certainly. Most certainly. Yeah. Nope.
Okay, thank you.
We can do that. I know butters, this has gone on. This has been, I understand there's been COVID in the mix of this as well, but this has been a 2-year process for you folks. This has been arduous.
Right. It's been too long.
Right. Right. I understand. Well, there will be some level of a decision by the end of this week, and where that goes, if there's other action that has to be taken, to ask your hypothetical of what happens from there. It's
Right.
one step at a time, and the town council, the solicitor does have this, so they would
Right.
guide the board in that process.
Right. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Anyone want to make any comments? Anyone in the public who's listening here? Any comments?
Mr. Grady, no.
Apparently not. Okay. Then we'll close up on number 7 here on the agenda. So moving along, we're up to an update on the coronavirus.
The COVID, Mr. Chairman, I have to apologize. We had some staff shortages here. I do not have a PowerPoint, so you will not see, and the listeners at home won't have what has been a typical, has gone on for some time through this, the monthly updates, but I can run you through some numbers, and I think that's what's most important, and it'll be a little bit more condensed, only because the slideshow is not available to me, but in fact, active cases that we have right now are 27 active cases, and these are reported cases. Now, it is understood that this is significantly underreported because we are distributing at-home test kits. So the number, I don't know what the exponent is on that. Is it times 10, times 100? But the testing is happening at home and really not at medical facilities, urgent care, hospitals, clinics, primary care facilities. But right now we have active cases of 27. The important number for the listeners and the board, I should say, and then the listeners to know, is that our positivity rate is over 11.2. And interestingly, the board took action last meeting to put an advisory in place. And if you probably saw on the news, the 2 largest communities in the Commonwealth, Massachusetts, Boston, and Worcester, now have taken that same step. They did that last week, an advisory, because they see the numbers ticking up. We're at 11.22. Yarmouth is at 11.22 positivity rate, and that is the highest across the Cape, and it's higher than the state average. So that is the state average is at 6, so we're almost double the state average, 11.22. Fully vaccinated, interestingly enough, our population changed in the calculation, so that we had been fully vaccinated over or near 80% or just over. We're now at 77%. Our population went from recorded population of 2462. They record our population now as 2522. And we have no explanation for that. So as a result, the percentage of the population, we went down. We were 80% given the smaller population. We're now at 77%. The same vaccinated number of people, but we're not.
Right.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, I know. We had no explanation for that. Concurrently, the second booster, we're at 14% when we had been higher. Again, that population now is at over 25,000.
Is that the summer people, do you think?
I have to think Mary, I have to think if they included the summer, we would be well
Would be
above.
well over. Yes, well over.
25, more like 50, right? Is what you think? Yeah, so I have no explanation for that, but we immediately, our numbers, our eyes were drawn to, we're under 80% now. And we look at the population, that's what it was. So the positivity rate, on a positive note, as recent, even this meeting tonight, kits, what you heard at the last meeting, the state delivered 4,320 test kits, and here they are here. The community has now received them they received them here at the town hall upstairs when people are paying their excise, their bills, their real estate, getting beach stickers, dump stickers. And on average for the past week, about 30 kits a day are going out, that being emptied off that table when you first come into the town hall. 30 kits a day. They're being distributed at farmers market twice a week. They've been at the food pantry. They're at the senior center. Several nonprofits. All of the libraries have received them. Several other departments, DPW, police and fire. So we're moving these out into the community at a very rapid pace. The attendees that were here tonight at tonight's meeting, each took them, and a dozen kits went out the door. So that's all in a positive move, where people now, to the point of positivity, people are testing at home and then not reporting. But the most important thing is there's self-monitoring that's going on, and that's the most important, and then isolation. And we have some activity here in the town hall, actually in the Board of Health office. So that's concerning. Might we see an uptick in hospitalizations? And might we see that some other pieces that would then follow? It's really the outside, 4th of July, we think of as an outside, celebration, but we are seeing an uptick in this AB5, very transmittable. The other piece that the state is pushing is Paxlovid. If it is medically indicated that early on, if you test positive, if you're over 18, that you would call your primary care physician and see if an appropriate course of action would be to take Paxlovid to shorten the severity and the length of COVID.
And hopefully not
Additionally,
have a rebound like Dr. Fauci did.
what's that exactly? Yeah,
And hopefully not have a rebound like Dr. Fauci did.
I know. So, but I do want the listeners, the board to know still, and the listeners at home, that vaccinations are still available at Cape Cod Hospital, at urgent care centers, at Walgreens, at our pharmacies, CVS. Those are still available, and we would encourage that to continue. But it is concerning the mask advisory that the board put in place. It was prudent at the time. You were actually in front of the curve on that, and we're going to see other communities doing the same.
Yeah, hopefully people are acting upon, if they have a positive result on test, that, as you said, isolation is still what's needed. And it's not just a point to know about, hey, I'm positive. It's following, the rules of,
Right.
what's advised if you actually test positive.
Right.
The information is certainly on the website for people listening, of reminding them of what they should do if they test positive.
It is still a 5-day isolation, and then additional 5 days of monitoring, wearing a mask. So 10 full days, but 5 complete isolation. And if there's a concern, the typical, the fatigue, the fever, the symptoms are all the same, even though it's now the 4th variation of a variant. But fatigue, fever, respiratory issues, things of that nature. If it becomes severe, obviously call your primary care physician. But Chairman, as you said, self-monitoring, self-testing, cough hygiene, all those practical purpose, practical, useful things that you can do to help prevent the spread.
Thank you. Yeah.
Jay, what about reporting a positive test result from an at-home test? Is that done through a healthcare provider?
I think you can contact the state DPH to self-report that. I do have to tell you, Eric, those numbers are, I believe, very small. They're
Yeah,
not, people aren't taking that additional step.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of more and more people know people who are positive or recently were positive, and people who are getting, infected again. I mean, it's pretty obvious what's taking place. And it's summertime, so
Right. We don't, it just, it's almost contraindicated where you're outdoors, you're outside at the beach. 4th of July is an outside, activity, celebration. One thing I do want the listeners, the at-home audience to understand is that the kits that we're giving out, we put a QR code onto them. These are the ones that come from the state. So the box itself, the packaging does say expiration of July. The QR code expands that to October, end of October, so that these are still useful and usable. If someone does not not familiar with doing a QR code, if you have picked them up at farmers market or the library, these are still useful and valid. So to use your kits, and we have more, but don't take the date that's off the package. The QR code will tell you if they're valid, they're usable, they don't expire until the end of October.
okay, thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. So hopefully everyone took a look at it. It was in your packet. This was the meeting from June 6th. Time moves along a little bit. Looks like everyone here tonight was there at the last meeting. Any comments anyone had when they reviewed the minutes? Any edits?
I move that we approve the minutes from the June 6, 2022 Board of Health meeting.
Okay, is there a second there? Okay, thank
Second.
you, Eric. Well, I'll say yes. Okay, so why don't we vote on that? All in favor of passing here on the minutes from the June 6th meeting, say yeah, that's 3, unanimous. Okay, minutes are accepted here. New and old business.
Next meeting,
Okay, so summer, we generally been trying to reduce it down to 1 a month. Unless there's something big that comes up. We can always cancel, but let's at least book it, schedule it, so people can arrange their own schedule. And once again, if we needed to, can have one earlier, or we can cancel it. So Mondays next month, the 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. I know Deborah cannot make the 8th. She sent me an email that stated that.
okay. So if we went a month with, so then that, the 8th, and that would be the 15th?
That would be one that's sort of in the middle-ish, yeah.
And it's a month from now.
I'm okay with that. Mary, Eric,
That's fine.
okay.
good.
All right, so we'll schedule it for the 15th, next board meeting. And there's a number 11 there, if anyone wants to act upon that.
I move to
No,
I will be in touch with the board at the end of the week with the decision from the court.
great.
Number 11, we still have to act upon it, otherwise you can't turn off your computer.
I move we adjourn.
Wow. Second, okay, all in favor, quickly raise your hand, say aye. This meeting is
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone. It's been a long haul. Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Right.